As business owners, we're often making very quick decisions because there's not a lot of time and we need to just keep moving. For this goal setting exercise, I'm going to invite you to pause and reflect. And the reflection part of things is even more important than planning your next 10 years. I absolutely love this exercise. It was originally from the creator Marie Forleo, and I did it for the first time in 2019. So you can imagine that things that I had planned out for 2020 forward maybe had to pivot a little bit. I will show you so I have that linked here at the bottom. If you want to look at the original, she has videos attached to each section. Of course, I'm going to take you through my version of it, and I will also show you that original document that I wrote out for myself in 2019, and hopefully seeing some of my reflections and some of my plans for the future might inspire you to think a little bit deeper about your own. So this will be broken down into sections, and we want to look at business and career, health and fitness, and then lifestyle. So when you're going through this, I don't just want you to think about where you are in your professional life. I want you to think about your health, your lifestyle, and also your personal, your family, your friends. And I think if you're anything like me, you might throw yourself into business, and sometimes the relationships in your personal life become an afterthought. So I want to talk you through kind of the whole picture, and hopefully taking this pause will remind you what you're doing all of this hard work for, and remember to build in little moments of pause and gratitude and time to celebrate where you currently are and not just go, go, go. What are we doing next? So for section one, so the first half, we're going to reflect on the last 10 years. And this was a little sad to look at, but the oldest year that we're going back to is 2016. So for me, I graduated PT school in 2015. So that's a major landmark that has dropped off my decade in review this time around. I do this every year. I'm going to show you the original one from 2019, and then I will, after we all do this, I haven't done mine for 2025 yet, but after we all do this, I'd love to talk to you about it. I'd love for you to share this with your family members. Like I have my husband go through this with me, and we do our big kind of family household planning next week, right before New Year's, when we're off and we've had some time with family. We're disconnected enough from work where we can actually sit down and think clearly and have this discussion. I've also done this a couple times at our House of PT anniversary parties. So I've had people share their own, so they do the whole thing privately, and then when we're at dinner, everyone shares whatever they're comfortable with. So that could be just one line from their notebook, or it could be the whole thing. I try to be very open and transparent because that makes other people feel comfortable being vulnerable and talking about things that maybe aren't so easy to share. Okay, so for section one, you can do this in a notebook first. So if you want to just jot your messy thoughts down on paper and then make a copy of this Google Doc, and after you have everything kind of messy, you can organize it into year by year and just pull out some of the most prominent ones. What tends to happen is there's a lot for the last year or two and less each year as we get older and kind of just those big things pull out. So I will recommend going through your old calendars, even like popping through your EMR schedule, pull out some old notebooks that are in the drawers of your desk, scroll through your photo album on your phone, look through what you were tagged in on Facebook, look at your business and personal Instagram accounts, and just kind of see if that sparks some of the emotion and memories that we're looking to pull up here. So the first section, we're going to go year by year, the things you are most proud of. First, over the past decade, what's the thing that you're most proud of? Jot that down. What stands out immediately? And then probe yourself to go deeper and think about what are some of the things, business, health, and personal relationships from each year. Write down the small things too. I think this is really healthy to reflect on some of those things that maybe aren't big enough to hang a diploma on the wall or put extra letters after your name, but the small wins that stick with you emotionally. Okay. And then if something like that does stand out, write some detail on why. Um, if there's a specific patient case that stands out in your mind, like I will never forget talking to the 49ers doctor about a patient that had a posterior dislocation and was misdiagnosed, and like that sticks with me. It's not necessarily because it was the most complex um, or it was life changing for this person. Someone would have found it eventually, but the heightened emotion of that situation and the conversation with the doctor and where I was standing and all of that kind of is burned into my memory like it was yesterday. So kind of think about those moments, write down why, like what was it about that moment that was imprinted, and are there some other moments that maybe were a bigger deal that don't have as vivid of a memory attached to it? Can you work through some of those and allow yourself to feel proud of catching those complex diagnoses, or something in your personal life, in your family life that stands out, that doesn't stand out as much because maybe you are downplaying it. But if you wrote it down and you looked at that, or you heard it from someone else, you would feel super proud of them. And as you go through this, allow yourself, you're in private, it's just you and your notebook. Allow yourself to feel proud and accept acknowledgement for those big things that you do. So you can either pause and work through this right now, or you can go through the whole thing and then come back and work through the document by yourself. Next section, you're going to go through your learnings. So this is a little bit more of looking at your mistakes, what things have forced you to learn and grow. And now, when you're going through these items, rather than the initial emotion of maybe embarrassment or disappointment or failure, let's look at those mistakes and write yourself out the lesson and how you've grown, or how you would like to grow from that. Or maybe if it's something that still brings up really strong feelings of embarrassment or disappointment, you allow yourself to go back and tell yourself at 2018 that you grow from it, and now you have overcome that 10x. So an example for me would be probably in 2022, I had a really hard time. I think actually I'm a year off. It was 2021. I hired someone that I had never met in person. So it was my first time hiring remote. And I just felt so much guilt of how I would be perceived by this stranger who didn't work side by side with me when I was hustling and getting the business off the ground. And they didn't see the late nights, the weekends, me scrubbing the bathrooms for patients because we couldn't afford a cleaning company back then. And they were stepping into this practice where I was living in Florida and I was so worried, she's going to think that I'm sitting on a beach somewhere while I'm telling her that she has to see X number of patients a day. And I had so much kind of built up of what I didn't want her to think that I overcompensated and um, I blurred any sense of objectivity with her and being able to hold her accountable or coach her through any difficulties. And anytime there was a problem, I just defaulted to like, well, I don't want her to be upset with me, or I don't want her to think I'm taking advantage of her. So that is kind of one of my big learnings of the last decade. And, now sitting here at the end of 2025 with a team of 8 full-time employees. I have hired and gone through transitions, and I have had lots and lots of difficult conversations holding people accountable. I've helped a lot of the people in our group hire multiple employees. I've helped people go through transitions just like I have. And I can go back and tell that person in 2021 that you're going to get through it and not to wallow in the I've made a mistake and now I can never hire again. So I'm sure there are some lessons that you want to teach your former self, and whether it is that you are still trying to figure out, how do I get past this? Maybe there's a certain point that you're stuck on and you keep repeating. Maybe it's every time you delegate, you don't know how to hold the person accountable and you feel like either you micromanage or you ignore it, and then you end up taking that task back because it never gets done up to your standard. Like maybe that's something that you're in a cycle of, I don't know how to break out of that, and you want to write that down and write the lesson that you want to learn or the outcome that you want for the next 10 years. And then later on we'll come back to the goal setting and you pull out, that's the lesson that I need to learn. And then, when we get there, we'll talk about, okay, well, we're not just setting goals, we're making a plan. And in order to execute on these things, we need to figure out, what resources do I need to actually learn this lesson or actually make a change so that this cycle doesn't happen. And I can break out of being the only one in the business who can do things right, whether that's treating patients or cleaning to your standard or whatever it is. Okay, so you're going to do the same thing for career, family, health, finances is a big one. Do we have any problems with overspending? I definitely had a problem with in my kind of early post PT school phase of um, you know, ignoring my debt, so student loans, credit cards. This year was my first full year in business. This year was opening the clinic. So in these 2 years, I went from making a really, really healthy salary working in, I worked full time as a clinic director, and then I worked in a second location 30 plus hours a week. So I was making a lot of money, and then I was making nothing with the same amount or more bills. So something that I had a really hard time with in those years was just I didn't want to look at it, and I ignored it. And I told myself that eventually, when I'm making money, I can catch up. But I did it blind. So in 2019, when I was making really good money, all of that money went to paying back what the bad position I put myself in and playing catch up. And I wish that I was a little bit more disciplined and not so fearful about it. And I would have made a plan rather than just uh, punishing my future self. Because once I started making money, I couldn't actually fully enjoy it because I was just playing catch up and patching up the mistakes I made for the prior 2 years. So now, 6 years later, I am very disciplined about looking at my finances on a regular basis. All of you know, second Monday of the month, I'm sitting down with my P&L. I'm looking at the bank statement. I'm looking at, you know, I'm moving money into the savings account following the profit first rules. I'm looking at my own salary. I'm looking at our goals and our projections for the next couple months. And do I need to make any adjustments on my salary in order to hire someone, or in order to save enough to be able to take our 2 weeks off in December? Like, I am very, very disciplined about that because of how I ignored things in these years, and it snowballed. And when I finally did hit my goals and hit my stride in business, and I was able to hire employees and grow my team, I wasn't able to enjoy it the way that I should have because I had put myself into a hole. So I want you to go through each one of those sections, and let's go year by year. Again, using your calendars, using your camera roll. Maybe there aren't so many pictures of the tough times, and that's a sign for you. I know I definitely have much less pictures of the business in 2021 going into 2022, when I was just in this high alert, not sleeping, pacing in the middle of the night. How do I handle this situation that I got myself into? So there are definitely less pictures of the business. There's less posting on social media in this hard time, and that might be a clue for you, and to dive back in what was going on during that time. Okay, now we're going to transition. This is the fun part. A lot of people find it intimidating to look 10 years out. I find it so inspiring and freeing, and I just have the belief that anything is possible. And if you don't feel like there's this abundance of possibilities and growth and no limits, then find someone who you look up to, whether it's in business or personal, and prove to yourself that they have done some of the things that you want to do. So that means that it is possible for you. And if you don't know where you want to be in 10 years, that's even more freeing, because you can use this time to think of all of the different options, and maybe you meld some of the options together and you create your own. I know that when I was opening House PT, everyone told me 500 square feet is too small for a PT clinic. And that was just me alone. I had one treatment table in the center of the room and a yoga mat on the floor. And everyone was like, this is too small. I now have 3 PTs working out of each space. And we did 5,000 visits in 2025 out of 500 square feet offices. So 1,000 feet total. 5 full-time therapists in the space, 1 full-time remote, and we did 5,000 PT visits. So I didn't know in 2017, when I was opening that space, what the possibilities were. I just knew that I didn't want to copy what I had seen done. And there's nothing wrong with some of the places that I worked. I absolutely loved the setting of my first job. I had a room in a personal training studio, and I got to learn from all different personal trainers. So as far as, specialty, they were all independent. So lots and lots of variety, lots of learning. But I wasn't looking to repeat that setting. I wanted a certain feeling. I wanted this home like atmosphere. I didn't want people to be intimidated by white coats and the doctor patient relationship. I wanted it to be peer to peer. Tell me what's going on. Give me the dirty details. I don't want you to feel like you have to hold anything back because I am um, a professional and you have to use certain language with me, like, you get this when you're on Zoom with me. I want you to be comfortable. If you're cozy on the couch or sitting on your living room floor with the laptop on the coffee table, if you have kids running around in the background, or you're eating your breakfast because this is your only break in between patients, like, come as you are. And that's the vibe that I wanted to go for. And I didn't know what that looked like. And that's okay. So maybe this time you're writing, how do you want people to feel when they're around you? And that could be in all three of those categories. So maybe in your health and fitness, when people are around you, you want them to feel comfortable asking a question about, why do you make this choice over that choice? Or you want them to feel like you're approachable at the gym, and you love showing people the technique that you've learned. Or maybe you want your health and fitness to feel inspirational, and you want to show that it's really hard work to maintain the health and fitness routine that you have. Maybe it's getting up at 5 a.m. before the kids are up, and you want to show, like, hey, this is a hard thing and I'm doing it alongside of you. So whether it's in business, health, or relationships, like, think about, how do you want people to feel when they're around you? Or how do you want to be perceived? Or maybe you don't want to be perceived at all, and you want to carve out some more private time in your life. Maybe you are in a season where everything everything for you is accessible at any moment, and you never have a moment to yourself. Like, maybe that's something that you want to carve out. And you want to be an inspiration to others as far as how you set your boundaries and what you're able to show online, or what you're able to allow your spouse to participate in. And don't take that the wrong way, but the first couple of years that we were together, we did absolutely everything together. That means I'm going to the car shows and we're going to the gym together. And I was a runner, so he started running. And I realized, like, hey, running is my like clarity moment. So I don't run to track my time or my distance. I run when I have a complex problem and I need my body to catch up with my thoughts. And having him on the runs telling me, like, oh, we need to do another 3-minute interval, and then we need to walk, and then we need to, and I was like, no, no, this is now my personal time. We can't, I'm a planner, right? You're sitting here with me mapping things out. My runs can't be planned. My runs need to be whatever my mind needs in that moment. So when you're going through this, think about it in those ways, and not just, my health and fitness goal is to shave a minute off my mile time. I want it to be more of the feelings, the emotions, because those are things that you can achieve without structure. And I think sometimes people find writing a business plan or goal setting to be very structured, and it's not practical because you're going to get sick, or there's going to be a closure in your office that you didn't plan for, and you're not going to hit this exact dollar amount monetary goal. But you can, even in those setbacks, you can still preserve how you want to feel about your office. So maybe you have some resentment right now because you're working longer hours than you'd like, or you're paying your employees more than you're paying yourself. Like that's a very real thing that we go through in phases. So focus on the landmarks of I wake up with a clear mind and I know exactly what I'm working on today. Versus right now, you may feel like there's a million things on your plate and there's a million things to do. And when you sit down, you're like, I don't know what to work on first because they all feel so pressing. And then when you do start working, you get an email from a patient that needs a scheduling issue, or a colleague that needs a fire put out, and you have a raccoon that busts into your office and breaks everything and knocks over all of your plants. I'm giggling because that actually happened to someone while we were on a Zoom meeting. I didn't see the raccoon. She wasn't in the office, but that was an unforeseen thing that derailed what should have been a calm week in business. So no matter what, she can focus on, well, a year ago, the way I would have responded to that was with frantic chaos, and I would have hung up that call and ran over there to clean up the mess and handle it myself. And I would have canceled patients to take care of this. But where she was sitting was, hey, I know that I have someone who is more than capable and very responsible, and I'm going to kick this over and see if they can take care of it and give them all the tools that they need, give them the number to the landlord, the super, the handyman, and let's see if they can take care of it and I can continue my day without being totally derailed. And I'm pretty sure that's what happened. So giving you examples, uh, trying to give you some inspiration so that you're not just thinking about where do I want to financially be. And when you are writing those financial goals, what will the increased amount of money allow you to do? Someone in our group told me that they wanted to hit a certain landmark in what they could pay themselves because they wanted to be able to take their preteen kids on a Disney cruise before they were too cool to hang out with mom. That is a real tangible thing to work towards versus if you just keep chasing, I want to make more money than I did last year, you're not going to feel fulfilled. And the landmark is going to be there. You're going to see the number in your bank account, and then that money goes really quick, especially if you have to catch up on credit cards or student loans or business loans or any of those things. So let's focus on what do we want to use the money for rather than, and then once you figure out, okay, this is what I want to use the money for, then you can reverse engineer, okay, well, how much do I need to pay towards my credit card bills each month? How much do I need to pay towards my student loan, my laser payments to get that um, off of my plate? Okay, there's some prompts down here too, which, yeah, this is the prompt that I said. And then here's the real meat. Section 4 is arguably the most important after your gratitude section in the beginning. What will help you accomplish your plans? Again, if you're anything like me, it's pretty hard to ask for help. I'm a DIYer. I get frustrated when I outsource something and then it's not quite exactly what I wanted and I paid for it. I'd rather do it myself, but that's not practical. And especially as you grow and there's more and more people that you're responsible for, um, you you need to get comfortable asking for help, and you realize as the business grows there are so many things that you didn't even know that you needed to learn. um, I know where I'm sitting now, there are things that I'm learning about the business of physical therapy that weren't even on my radar in 2017 when I was doing this build out. And um, I realized that one of my weaknesses is not wanting to ask for help, not wanting to bother anyone, um, and sometimes not knowing what help I need to ask for. So one of the things that I've worked on in this section is finding people who are a few steps ahead and then just asking them a lot of open-ended questions. Asking them things like, what's the hardest thing that you did this year? Um, what's something you're thinking about in the next 3 years? I asked a practice owner much larger than me, you know, what are your expansion plans for the next year? And they said something like opening 3 clinics and hiring 40 new employees. And I was like, okay, that feels wild to me, right? My goal for 2026 is to not hire anyone new unless it is an assistant for my biller. So we have a full-time biller, director of operations, and as we grow, there are too many things for her to manage as one person, and maybe that's the one hire that we make. But um, my goal is to enjoy the size of our team and the amazing people that we have, and to support them to their fullest potential. So, talking to someone else about that, I was like, okay, well, break that down for me. How do you choose the next location? How do you recruit? How do you handle those interviews? Are you doing every interview from start to finish yourself? Who do you trust on your team to execute the interview process and pull you in only when necessary? Like, so what does HR look like? What does compliance look like? Um, that opened up like a can of worms as far as things to ask. And some of those responses, like I didn't know some of those tools and resources that they shared were available. Another person that I talked to at conference, it was just someone I met, and I asked, what was the hardest thing that you dealt with this year? And I think the other question I asked was, what were you looking to learn at conference? And they were going through an acquisition, or I don't even know if you would call it that, because they weren't merging with someone else, but they were selling. Um, and he was in the process of learning how to manage the company without being the sole decision maker. And I learned so much about how his company was valued and what that process looked like. And these are things that are foreign to me, and I wouldn't know. Um, Again, a couple of years ago, I wouldn't know where to start with that conversation. So I want you to think about, um, what are the things that you need: people, resources, books. What are the things that you need? Maybe it's time. Okay, so if you need time, are you doing the essentialism exercise, right, where you draw the circle with all the arrows and you figure out, okay, which arrows can I delegate to my team, and which arrows need to stay under me? So are you figuring out how to free up some time so that you can have the ability to execute on these goals? You can't, one of my goals was to be home for dinner at least one night a week. That was my goal in 2019. I couldn't do that if I didn't give some patience to another person or block my schedule to create the time. So let's think about this section in reference to your goals, and then also think about who are some people that are a few steps ahead of you, either in physical therapy, right? So maybe you look at the owners in our group and you pull on some of the people who've been in business for a few more years than you have, or have a bigger team, or have a similar specialty as you, and you go to them. Maybe you go to your accountability buddy that I set you guys up with. Maybe you look outside of PT, and I learned so much from the hair salon owner across the street and the cell phone store owner at the corner. He actually opened 2 stores, one on either corner. So we're on 10th between First and A, and he has one at the corner of First and one at the corner of A. And he told me all about the difference in foot traffic and who's walking over to Tompkins Square Park versus who's walking over to the subway station and Stuytown on First. And it gave me so much insight into, okay, well, if I want to market, I'm looking at two totally different demographics if I go east or west. So who are some of the people that you want to learn from in your network? So maybe it's another healthcare provider, maybe it's another business owner, maybe it's someone in your neighborhood that you've seen open a business and create a community. Maybe it's somebody online. I've reached out to the prehab guys. I've reached out to a friend from high school is the sports physio. So I've talked to him about how he grew his social media following, and like those were all really helpful, insightful conversations. And again, it wasn't my area of expertise. So I was reaching out to them of like, hey, can you just share your story? And then as they shared things, I learned what things I wanted to go deeper and research on my own, or I asked them for a book or a podcast or a course that they took. And then that created my learning calendar. Giving you all of this so that you don't put yourself into a box of um, feeling like you don't know where to turn or you don't know how to get to the places that you want to get to in the next 10 years. Okay, last one is narrowing things down. So once you go through this whole big picture plan, you're going to pick your one goal to focus on next year. I would love if you feel comfortable to share it in our discussion board. So just write, my main goal for 2026 is blank. And then this way we can all kind of use this as a collaborative way to support each other. Or if you write that that's your goal and someone has already achieved that, maybe they can just proactively reach out to you. Or maybe if they have a good resource, they can share it, and we can comment on each other's and help us actually reach that and not just make a big promise for January and forget about it. And then you're going to break it down into tangible steps. So I like to break down the 1 year goal into quarterly, and then from quarterly, we figure out, okay, what does that look like on a weekly basis? And then what do I need to add to my calendar in order to make this into bite-sized chunks? Maybe some of those chunks are setting up a meeting with those people that you need to look to as mentors or inspiration. Maybe those things are blocking out an hour to take a MedBridge course or to listen to this podcast that will help you set your mindset. Whatever that is, break those down and put it in your calendar, or it doesn't happen. Okay, I'm going to leave you with that. Here is the original plan. And again, she has videos here too. So if you want to do each section with her or hear a different voice, or, she has a couple more prompts in there. But this is my original source. And then I will show you, this is mine for 2025 that I haven't done yet. I will show you mine for 2019. So remember, the first half is the reflection. So, some of my time in undergrad, buying a new car, some of my health and fitness. So snowboarding for the first time, kayaking for the first time. When I got into PT school, I was very much, I didn't have any hobbies because I was working full-time and going to school, and I graduated undergrad early with almost a dual major. So I was very much wrapped up into work. And when I got into PT school and everyone had these cool hobbies, I just asked people, hey, I heard you're going snowboarding. Can I come with you? And I heard you're going for a run, and I signed up for my first 5K around this time too. So just reflecting on, it's not just the career things in here. I have some of my accomplishments from my first job. And I was doing like 60, 70 hours of patient care, direct patient care, in addition to everything else that goes into that. The big one for me is bolded, right? Opening the practice and having that wait list. I had that wait list because we were supposed to open in the summer and things get delayed. You can plan so much. My learnings. So I wrote it kind of more in paragraph form, and the big things that I was struggling with, right? Not giving myself breaks, drinking way too much coffee. Some fun things for me, looking back at this, some of the things that I wanted to prioritize. I definitely in 2025 took this very seriously of prioritizing not just my family, because family has been good for a while. I've been eating on average 2 meals a day with my husband, which is a stark difference from 2019 when I was working around the clock, 7 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. and, just crashing when I got home. But areas to improve for me this year, I really wanted to make an effort to make friends in Florida, because over the last 5 years of living here, I just go back to New York every 6 weeks for weddings and celebrations. And I go on girls' trips with my friends from elementary school. And I was missing that day to day, like just grab coffee with someone and go for a walk. And if you don't put an effort into making friends as an adult, they don't just appear like they do as kids. So that was something that I'm going to put in my current review, that I'm really proud that I actually executed on that. And I have a weekly phone call for an hour with my cousin, and I have a happy hour with girls who are also transplants to Florida. And I'm in a volunteer group, and I have that day to day personal relationships. Yeah, so I think, some of this is fun to look at, because in 2020, I'm going to scroll back and forth. I'm sorry. In 2020, one of my goals was to, improve my leadership and prepare myself to hire and expand again. And in 2021, I said I was going to open a new office, and we know that didn't happen. And after having such a hard time with hiring 2021, 2022, I felt like a little bit of a hypocrite when my coaching business, and I was helping people open their practices, but I didn't know how to help them hire. And even if I was giving them the tools, I felt like, well, if my picker was off, am I going to be able to teach someone else? And that took a lot of self-development and a lot of learning leadership. I listened to the Coaching for Leaders podcast, and unreasonable hospitality, conscious capitalism, conscious leadership. So a lot of studying and figuring out, okay, well, what type of leader do I want to be? And then how can I execute this in a better way? And I think 2022, we hired again, and it was very, very different, even though it was the same thing. I hired remote without meeting them, without doing any hands-on skills testing. And I think that looking back at this and just allowing myself to sit with those feelings and redirect and acknowledge that it was a lesson, and it was expensive and emotional, and House of PT is so much stronger for me making that mistake. This one's really cool. So again, I wrote this in 2019. In 2025, I wanted the business to be independent. So I thought it was going to take me 9 years to get the business with systems in place so that I didn't have to go in every day. Right? And that actually happened. Well, it happened in 2020 with some failures in there, which is okay. But by 2022, I did not have to step in the same way. I was not pacing. There were not sleepless nights. So really cool that, we're looking at, I thought it was going to take 9 years, and we actually got there much quicker. Vacation home is still on the list. 2030. So some of these things, the other part that I want to point out, and the reason I wanted to show you mine, is because some of these things, I don't know if they're going to happen in the same way. So the affiliation with DPT programs, I don't think that our setting is great for students. We have 2 patients, 2 PTs working side by side in 500 square feet. When we have someone come into shadow, it's really, really tight. We're out of network and cash. Can I pass patients off to a student the same way that you can kind of co-treat and share in a traditional insurance-based model? I don't know. So this might actually turn into, I know some of my therapists are interested in teaching. So maybe our affiliation is that we have people who are giving back and they're TAing, or they're going in to teach one lecture in the local schools, NYU, Toro, LIU. That would be cool. So maybe that's something that will satisfy my employees' want to teach and pass on their knowledge. And obviously, when you TA, you're getting additional pay for that. So that could be something interesting to redirect one of those things that I had on here. So it's not that I was wrong or I failed on this. It's more of assessing, is that really where we want to go, and how can we achieve that connection with students without the way that I thought it looked in 2019. Right? Something else that's on here that is not as easy to plan as business and fitness is the family planning aspect, and I still want to carry that forward. But that was definitely something on the personal side that I have had to sit with and process, and those things, I planned as if it was a business decision, and that's not how regular life works. So something interesting to kind of figure out, how can I keep that on my plans without being so structured and treating it like it's a KPI. Right? And then here are all the things that I had down of who to go to and what to delegate, and really important one for a lot of you here. Okay. Last thing on here that I will share with you in a less structured way. This was, I think it was a podcast that I listened to that was about affirmations, and I was trying to understand what even is an affirmation and how do I write that. So this is something I wrote in my notes app when I was on a flight in 2021, and it's nice to see, some of these things that I called into my life have come to fruition, and some of the things that I still want to, maybe I modify them a little bit, but some of the things that I still want to revisit because I don't look at this often enough. And everything that I make decisions on, should I say yes to this project, or, my volunteering with a private practice section, like, why am I doing this? And I think it's really important. I was a speaker at conference in 2024, and when applications came open for 2025, like, that wasn't the best way to bring this to light, the amount of work and effort and the way that it was received. I could have a bigger impact on this aspect, right? And this aspect in a different way than preparing to be a speaker. Being a speaker 2 years in a row would have just been for the ego of standing on stage. So I think the way that I use this section is, when opportunities come up, I run it by this. Kind of like how I tell you to run your decisions by your performance document. So those four headings of happy patients, good environment, professional development, and growth. I kind of use this as a personal barometer. And this one, I've got 1 out of 3. So I think it's funny, sometimes we kind of call in these like really big numbers, and I always want to like round up and think bigger rather than think smaller, and work in small inches. I want to work in big, grandiose plans. So my physical therapy practice is there. My coaching business is 6 figures. It's only me. So I think that was silly for me to think that I could grow it to that size. I thought selling courses online and DIY things were very different than they actually are. And I don't love the DIY, because what most people need is accountability and customization. So getting the coaching business to that size is no longer one of my goals. And then I co-own a medical billing company with my mom. And again, it's just her. So that's not a viable option. Remembering that the landmarks in business are true for any service business, and quantity is not the goal. And then the passive income streams is another one that I kind of laugh at, because nothing is truly passive. And in order to generate money from affiliate stores or partnerships and things like that, you still need to do the work of promoting it and answering questions when someone is implementing the things that you are selling. So just want to show you, because you might have some of those big, grandiose ideas, and I want to make it realistic. Okay. Hopefully this was helpful, and it puts you in a calm state to plan out your future. And I'd love for you to share as much as you feel comfortable sharing with me. And please definitely share in the group your one big goal for 2026. And let's get a little bit more collaboration going.